Welcome back, everyone, to the Divine Feminine Healers podcast. It is Angelica here, spiritual entrepreneur and intuitive healer. And today's episode, I want to just kind of give a life update on what's feeling really current for me. I love to do these definitely multiple times a year, but usually around my birthday, because it's a great time for me to reflect on the year that has passed. I love to think about what lessons I have integrated and embodied, what were the challenges I overcame, what were the successes and goals that I met, and to also grieve the stuff that I have not met and the goals that I still have on my mind. And then get really clear on the intention for my year ahead, what my goals are, what I want to bring into fruition. So, what I wanted to share today on the podcast specifically was talking about how I'm this new era of joy. I've been talking about this on my podcast, and I have this deep wounding of feeling guilty for experiencing pleasure and learning how to trust my desires. This comes from childhood wounding, growing up in a Catholic Christian background and being celebrated for denying certain pleasures, especially around sexuality and sensuality, and also in that environment feeling like if you have those desires they're seen as sinful. I mean, there's so much there. I can This podcast episode is not diving into the roots of Catholicism and how it can sometimes bring a negative impact. By no means am I against Catholicism. My whole family is Catholic. I still go to church from time to time. But what I have found is that it had brought more harm than nourishment for me in these past couple of years. And I really had to make that distinction of how I picked up these beliefs that were just not serving me anymore. So I'm diving into how those beliefs really affected me and eventually led me to changing my diet and lifestyle practice this year that has brought me so much more joy and connection to my body than I have in a very, very long time. And it seems maybe so on the opposite end of what you think an intuitive healer would be doing. But by incorporating more meat, specifically red meat, into my diet and by introducing alcohol back into my life again, I feel the most connected to myself than I had ever before. And this is this has come from someone who is an intuitive healer who studied in India for a month, has had multiple spiritual masters, and there was a lot of reconciling that I had to do to get to this point. So let's back it up for a minute here and let's really get into the root of these beliefs and where it came from. Because understanding your karmic theme, this is something that I talk about with all my one-on-one clients when they first start working with me. We need to know what that theme and that pattern is because it's going to slither and slide in different areas of our life. And it's always going to feel like, oh my gosh, it caught me by surprise again. I didn't realize I was holding on to this belief and this was causing me to be out of alignment in my life. And of course, that little karmic thread, it snaked and it creeped into my life again. So I'm very familiar with how I feel guilty after experiencing pleasure and how I like being seen as being the good girl or being pure throughout my whole entire life. Like I said, growing up in a Catholic upbringing to wanting to be the straight A student, the perfectionist, so many different areas of my life that I obviously didn't understand that I had this belief. And of course I projected it when I was creating my spiritual business. When I got into spirituality, I very much, even though it was so liberating in so many ways, from learning certain things like God is not completely separate from you. Like, part of you is connected to God. You are God in a lot of ways. There's definitely a higher existence, someone who is maybe not a person, but a energy and a power that is bigger and grander than I could ever even imagine with my small human brain. But I am not separate from God. We are one. That was so liberating. And while it expanded my view on spirituality so much, there was still a lot of restriction that I was putting in spirituality, that it had to be in this perfect ribbon bowed box. So I've talked about this before in my podcast of how I kind of went down this 2-year rabbit hole of darkness and just going inward, where I meditated for 3 hours a day. I turned to veganism. I practiced this perfect Ayurvedic lifestyle because I thought, oh, in order to be the best at this, the best intuitive healer, this is what I'm going to do. I let go of finding balance and was like, I'm going to take this to the extreme and I'm going to be the very best at this. So I know a lot of people in this community relate to being the Pitta dosha, which basically just means you have a lot of fiery energy within you. And I find with my clients that relate to the fire energy and have this in their astrological birth charts can definitely have these perfectionist tendencies. And so for me, they really started to show up when I created my business. And in holding on to this identity of what I thought it meant to be a spiritual healer, I was neglecting these very human desires and needs that my body was telling me that it wanted. So, first, let me break it down with my relationship to my diet. Again, I also have a previous podcast episode where I talked about how I had really restrictive eating habits. I was petrified of eating certain things because at the time I had IBS symptoms, which just basically means a lot of gas and bloating, and never know if you're having diarrhea or constipation. And it was this whole journey of trying very specific diets in order just to feel relief and not feel uncomfortable when I was out in public with people. That started my whole Ayurvedic journey. And learning Ayurveda and these simple little lifestyle tweaks and conscious eating like completely healed my digestion. And then in the spirituality world, I really started to pick up and get into the plant-based diet. And I thought, wow, this makes so much sense. I don't want the karmic debt of holding all to the animal cruelty that happens when we consume meat. Like majority of the world and how we treat our animals, it's awful and it's horrible. And I thought, gosh, why do we feel as humans that we can have power over animals who are so intuitive, who know way more than we do? There was so much shame and guilt that I had for being this bad person for consuming meat. So I completely eliminated it from my diet 10 years ago, and I wrote it off and was like, I'm never eating meat again. And I knew that was I was on a slow cycle to become completely vegan. It took me a while to give up fish because my body had been craving it so much. But then I got to the point where I just was like, I'm going to commit. I want to do this fully with a big heart and just be plant based. And I, for a moment, really liked being plant based because I felt really light. I think connection with plants is such a beautiful relationship. And I felt really intuitive when I was having plants, and I was strictly fruits and vegetables. But meanwhile, it took such a toll on my body. I gained weight. I was so inflamed in my face as well, just because my glucose spikes were so high because I had to consume a lot of fruit just to get me through the day. And I'm someone who's always been really physically active. So I had to eat a lot, and I was eating a lot of carbohydrates, which my body could not digest all of that glucose. So then it would just be dispersed as inflammation in my face and in my body. So I was starting to feel really disconnected from my body, but I resisted so hard for so long until my body literally was speaking to me so loudly and craving fish. And of course, at first, because I have a strong willpower and I know those perfectionist tendencies, I know how to do it. I denied it until I started having literal dreams about salmon. I was like, okay, there's something to this. I always trusted in my dreams. My dreams are always very true and dead on. So I started to incorporate more fish, and my body absolutely loved it. And then earlier this year, the same thing happened with chicken, which was so weird because I never been a big chicken eater. Even when I ate meat, I like didn't really care for it, and my body just craved it so much. And that first bite of chicken, I will never forget. I was in Erewhon, sitting down. I took a video to show my brother and my sister and my friends. And I literally, my body just felt so grounded after and nourished on a level that I had never felt before. And it took me a long time to start regularly incorporating meat because I felt so guilty. There was still something within me that felt like a bad person. It felt like I had given up because I had worked so hard to put on this persona that I was plant based, that I was pure hearted. And now I was just as worse as the rest of the world taking advantage of animals. And again, this theme with perfectionism really comes to these extremes where it has to be you're right or you're wrong. You're the good girl, you're the bad girl. And I really started to find a medium of there's actually conscious ways of eating meat. And there's actually very great scientific data to support why humans, specifically women, especially women who are trying to heal their hormones, need meat. So a lot of you know on my healing journey, healing from amenorrhea, which is a lack of menses for at least 3 months, and at one point in my life, I had a lack of menses for 3 years, is very much a part of a karmic theme for me. And so when I was vegan, it had been a year since I received my period. And I literally tried everything spiritually. I'm a very spiritual person. So I did all the energetic work that I could, all the womb clearing, a lot of emotional healing, a lot of mental healing, and physical healing as much as I could. It's taking herbs, doing castor oil packs, but the only thing that I did not shift yet was the diet. So it took me a very long time to even realize that I needed meat in order to heal because I was so resistant to it. Like the messages, I'm sure, were right in front of my face, and I was like, I don't want to receive this. Definitely not going to bring that into my life. Like I literally said in my head one time, all I know for sure is I'll probably never eat red meat again, but I'm literally willing to try everything else. And what happened to be the thing that is healing my hormones is incorporating red meat again because it has that iron, which my body has been very deficient in for a very long time. So, what really also was the catalyst for introducing meat back into my diet was I went on this beautiful trip in May to France and Italy with my family. And I knew when I was there, my intention was to enjoy. I know I could be very extreme sometimes, but I would just have the most miserable time if I was ordering side dishes of green beans while watching my family consume the most decadent farm to table loving, passionate meals of our lifetime. So I already knew from more of a human standpoint that I wanted to incorporate meat, but then my body was speaking to me, telling me this is actually the way of how you heal your hormones and get your period back is by having meat consumption. So it beautifully was orchestrated and came all together. And when I was in Europe in May, it really healed my relationship with food because I realized, wow, this can be done in a really conscious way. A lot of the restaurants we went to were farm to table, so we got to see the farm, and there was lots of family owned restaurants, and their passion and how they cultivated these fresh vegetables and how they cared for their animals, and everything was so fresh, and you could taste it and you could taste their passion in it. It completely changed my perspective on this and how food, especially when enjoyed, when you're enjoying the same food with your family, which I hadn't done in years, it was so special. It was this connection that I just can't explain, that it really is different. I don't think everyone has to eat the same thing, but enjoying that meal and that sense of pleasure and nourishment amongst everyone is such a special part of relationships. And for me particularly, it's been a very special part of my relationships and my life. And that May trip was so healing for me and being able to experience pleasure again. And I also had a lot of restriction on just incorporating dairy back into my diet just because I also knew that it caused a lot of inflammation. And so that was my reintroduction into dairy. And, in Europe, it's so different the way that they care for their animals and which additives are not allowed, and they're banned in Europe, but they're totally allowed in the United States. Like my body felt so good. It definitely felt a little heavy because I was consuming a lot of food and a lot of decadent food, but it was digesting everything well, and I felt amazing. So when I got back to the States, I was like, okay, I need to start incorporating meat again. And it took me forever to just like go to the grocery store and buy meat. I don't know if anyone else has these things of like holding meat, like and raw meat feels like really sick to me. So there was a whole process that I had to go through of touching the meat and being really connected with it. And also, again, it's that guilt carrying over of feeling like we as humans just have power over animals. There was so much that I had to get through mentally. And just by incorporating meat now regularly into my diet, now I consume meat multiple times a day, and it's been so nourishing for my body. I've actually felt my hormones come back online. I've been able to see it physically in my body and in my energy levels. This is the most stable and also healthy I felt in my body. I'm able to build muscle tissue. I've always been one who's been very on top of my workouts, but it's so great that now I am starting to see muscle definition come back in because I'm actually adequately feeding my muscles again. And so I'm going to be talking a lot about this more on my Instagram and how I've incorporated more of meats into my dishes and what recipes I use. And it's very interesting because Ayurveda actually, and a lot of people, let me back this up. A lot of people in the Ayurvedic world, they really relate to either the Vata dosha or the Pitta dosha when they have a imbalance. And what Ayurveda recommends diet wise for them is incorporating the sweet taste. The sweet taste is made up of earth and water. And predominantly, what makes up that sweet taste a lot is meat products. We think sweet taste probably in American standards would be desserts, cakes, but sweet taste actually means what is earth, what is water. And a lot of that is going to be really nourishing foods like animal products. So a lot of us, we need those diets to feel grounded in our bodies. As a healer personally, who is always up in the ethereal realms and always activating my third eye and my upper chakras, it is essential to have this animal protein actually helps me feel back into my body. It has been so great for my nervous system. I felt like it's really helped my anxiety levels. It's definitely stabilized my hormones. I'm not on these highs and these lows anymore. So there's a lot more successes that have been coming with my hormones and incorporating me into my diet that I'll keep you all updated for. But overall, I truly am feeling so much better and not crashing because of those glucose spikes from the heavy amounts of fruit that I was having. I mean, it feels like a no-brainer, and I'm sure a lot of you are laughing because either you've probably been vegan in your life before, or you realize that of course we as humans need animal protein. But that was a huge journey for me. Now, another huge lifestyle change that I've had within the past year was breaking my sobriety of being alcohol free. And I want to tread lightly here, of course, because I know this can be a very sensitive subject. And if you are someone who's had addiction with alcohol, and maybe this won't be the most fruitful conversation for you, this is my personal journey with alcohol. I'm sharing it just because if I'm having this experience, I'm sure other people are having this experience too. So again, as an intuitive healer, I saw myself, okay, I've got to be this like pure hearted, angelic person. And that means not doing substances like alcohol. Like we know it's bad for our body. We know it clogs the liver. We know that it causes you to feel out of body. We know that you can do it to avoid emotions. Like there's plenty of bad things about alcohol. In fact, I did a full podcast episode on why I became alcohol free about a couple years ago. I'll have that linked in the show notes in case you want to listen to it. There are definitely a lot of benefits to giving up alcohol. And I love those 2 years of my life. Like, I think the main pullaways that I got was reconnecting with my desires. A lot of times I felt like alcohol jaded my perspective and it made me feel like I was trying to be something that I wasn't. And it also made me feel like the next day, if I was hungover, I was making bad food decisions. So I felt like it wasn't allowing me to be my truest self. So I really love those 2 years for reconnecting back to who I was and getting back to my truth. And another piece that I loved was simply learning how to have fun without alcohol. I really thought I can only go out, can only have fun if I'm drinking alcohol. And so when I gave up alcohol at first, I didn't go out at all because I just didn't want to be around it. And I thought that it was stupid. And then it was so great getting to reclaim that part of myself that no, I love going out. I love being around people. I love dancing, not every night like I did in my college days, but it's very fun to do every once in a while. So I honestly, even though I said loosely, I was super curious, I really had no intention in incorporating alcohol back into my diet because I'm this perfect intuitive healer. I had inspired so many people. I would have a lot of my community members be like, oh my God, you're so inspiring being sober free. And I was like, yeah, giving me that little chip on my shoulder. And I felt so validated. And I felt really strong too. Like being out in public and people being like, oh, you're sober and you're out and you're having fun. Like it gave me so much confidence and it gave me so much freedom. And then the next day I woke up and I didn't have any hangover and I was like on top of my day. And it made me feel like I was a better person. But it really gave me a little bit of a spiritual ego. I did not judge other people for drinking. I mean, a lot of my friends drink and I was always around them. But I thought I was better because of it. So my sister sat me down and had a conversation one day and was like, are you really not going to drink alcohol anymore? And, I told her my reason. She's like, oh, I got it. Like, I didn't know, like, it was causing you, like, so much harm in your life. Like, I also know that you have a really strong willpower and you do things full heartedly. And I'm so impressed. And I can't believe you have not drinking alcohol in 2 years. That's so incredible. And I also want you to have fun. You're young, just turned 30, and I think it could be fun for you. I don't think you ever had a problem drinking. If you don't really feel like it benefits you, by all means, don't do it. But I think it could also be fun for you. And it really kind of slapped me in the face. I was like, at first, I was like, she doesn't get it. She's not into spirituality. She doesn't understand. And then I took some time to digest it, and I was like, oh gosh, why does my family know me so well? When your family says stuff, and like my immediate response is, no, you don't know me. And then I'm like, ugh, they know me the best though, right? So I really took me a while to make this decision, like months on months. I was ruminating on it because I do have a tendency to even please my family. I want to be loved by them, of course. So I sometimes have made decisions in the past in order to please them, and I've neglected my own needs. So I really had to get clear, like, okay, am I doing this just to please them, or am I doing this because this actually is me resisting my sense of pleasure again? And so what I found was, hey, my body has actually been craving alcohol again. Not in the sense of like, I need alcohol, but it wants to have fun. It wanted to let loose. It wanted to have this great experience and enjoyment with my friends and my family again. And I've been denying it. And in the past, when I had that craving, it was to avoid an emotion. So I was very clear, like, okay, am I avoiding something here? Is there something in my life that I don't want to see that I'm trying to numb? And it wasn't, because I took a lot of time to really explore the depth of those emotions. So I think that's also why there's a very distinction here of why I chose to go from alcohol free to incorporating alcohol back again into my lifestyle. So on my 30th birthday last year, I celebrated it. We went to a winery in Big Sur, and it was the best. I had so much fun. I woke up and I was like, oh gosh, what is this again? I have a hangover, but it was so lighthearted. I don't need to be going 110% every day. Like, I actually like that moment of pause, and it made me feel human again. It made me feel like, wow, I am not here. I did not choose this physical human body to have this perfect spiritual experience. I'll have that as soon as when I'm in the in between reincarnating into this next physical human body. But right now, I am meant to have a human experience. And everyone has those very differently. And for right now, when I'm listening to my desires and what my body and my intuition wants, it wants to have fun. And for right now, for some reason, it's enjoying alcohol on occasion. Now, I like to be really conscious about this. I am not just going off the handle every weekend drinking God knows what. But when I'm in Italy and I'm at on someone's farm, a family owned farm, and they grow their own grapes, organic and biodynamic, are you kidding me? I for sure want to enjoy that glass of wine with my meal. Or if I am at my cousin's wedding and we're all in Mexico and I just freaking love margaritas and tequila, and I'm going to enjoy that bartender's best margarita in the world, you betcha I'm going to have it, and I'm going to have an amazing time with my cousins. So it has been a journey of getting back to my joy, and there's been lots of times where I've drinking. I'm like, you know what? I didn't need to drink. I think I did that just to feel connected to the group. I think I did that because I felt like I had to have fun. I definitely do not do that if I do not drink or use any substance when I am avoiding an emotion. That is actually my hard boundary around it. That was just, I know that can take me down a dark hole, and I know when I was over consuming alcohol in my college days, that's what I was using it for. So I'm actually very strict on that. But if I just get that little inkling once a month or on an occasion and I want to do it and it seems fun, I trust that and I go with it. And sometimes I have that first sip of alcohol and I'm like, you know what? This isn't it. And I take that glass away. And then other times I have it and I have the freaking best night ever. I wake up. I know it is not the best thing for my body. I know I am not mentally clear. I know my meditation is going to be for shit. But I had a great night and I connected with friends. I connected back to my sense of pleasure. I let go. And that is what's feeding me and nourishing me right now, which seems so contradictory to the spiritual journey. Like, even that I'm saying this right now, I feel so scared to share this because I feel like it's the complete opposite of what we're seeing a lot. And I still feel guilty. Like, there's so many people I look up to who are sober, and I'm like, oh, that is so respectful. And I totally get it. Like, I think that it brings enormous benefits. And I also just know personally what feels really true and authentic to my journey right now is having this in my life. And I don't know if this is going to be forever. I don't know if this is just like a little relapse, if you will. I'm very open to seeing it, but I want to give everyone else that permission to experience pleasure and joy. That is the spiritual journey. The spiritual journey isn't your meditation practice. It isn't being vegan. It isn't being alcohol free. No one cares if you are. What I found the most human connection is when people know that you are real and that you are you. I'm a spiritual person who will drink alcohol on occasion, who has red meat and tries to eat as conscious as I can. And you know what? I'm not perfect. There are times when I'm at a restaurant and I don't know where that meat came from. Okay. There are times when that red wine was not organic and it gave me a real bad headache the next day and it was full of sulfates. But what's most important is that I am trusting my pathway to joy, and that my pathway to joy and play makes me the most spiritually connected to my mind, body, and spirit than I could ever have imagined. So that is my biggest life update. Meat consumption and incorporating alcohol back into my diet, which is the complete opposite of what you think is an intuitive healer. But I'm here just being real with you. I would love to hear from any of you who are experiencing some of these things. If you felt like you've had to go from extremes of being the good girl or the super spiritual person, and then realizing that you've really been denying these truths that you've had. And it's been great. So if you're not already following me on Instagram at Angelica_feminine_healer, give me a follow. I'm going to be sharing a lot of my meat-based recipes, which is extremely healing for pitta and vata imbalances. This is the best my digestion has ever felt. I feel like I'm getting more lean muscle mass than ever before. So I'm going to be sharing a lot of my tips and tricks for getting in conscious ways of eating meat, and sharing a little bit more about my fun lifestyle stuff that I do that maybe you think is not spiritual, but has been the most spiritual experience that I have had. So thank you all for listening. If you love this episode, I would absolutely do it if you share it with someone who is on this path too. And if you love it, if you listen to at least 2 of these episodes and you jive with it would mean the world to me if you commented, rated, and reviewed, which you can do either on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, whatever medium you're using. I simply love connecting with you. And if you want to connect with me directly, you can direct message me at Angelica_feminine_healer on Instagram. For all my LA lovelies, I am doing my last event in August. It's my full moon ceremony in the park. It's in Santa Monica, and it's a women's circle. We're going to be doing a meditation and Kundalini practice, followed by astrological update, and we'll have some times for women shares and sharing yummy, nourishing food. So if you want to sign up for that, I'll have that linked below. I have a lot more exciting events coming in September, which I'm so excited for you, and a really exciting offering coming in December that I will announce in the coming weeks. That is all I have for you today, lovely, lovely humans. I hope to see you next time at the Divine Feminine Healers podcast. Enjoy your day as blissfully as you can.